So you are going to, let's see, they can help you out because you were not here earlier. Raise your hand if you haven't had a chance to share your name and your call to teach or instruct. Help Mr. Paul out. So here now. Okay, rather right. Is just to serve as an indicator so you can get an idea of what your learning style is. You can turn over that sheet that I gave you. And while it does not include the read and write learning style, but the auditory, the visual, and the kinesthetic, I think it's a good exercise for our purposes today. Okay, so if you scored mostly A's, you may have a visual learning style. You learn by seeing and looking. If you scored mostly B's, you may have an auditory learning style. You learn by hearing and listening. And if you had mostly C's, you may have a kinesthetic learning style. You learn by touching and doing. Okay. When I did this with my husband last night and I read the characteristics of his learning style, he was in awe. He was like, oh my gosh, that's me. That's me. That's me. And sometimes you can understand your preferences, but you don't really realize that there is a science that is closely aligned that will help an instructor better present information to you, or how you would like to produce your product to show your mastery or your understanding of a subject. So this, I think, as people who are called to teach and to instruct, it's first interesting for us to consider our own learning style. I was talking to my sister over here. Please tell me your name again. Qualetta? Qualetta. And so we were talking about, she was asking me a question about the class that you saw the video of. She's like, was everybody a musical learner? Well, no, not everybody was. What you couldn't see is that on the whiteboard, I did have all of the verb, the pronouns, and all of the conjugations. And so for my my visual learners, for my read and write learners, I made sure that I considered them as well. I didn't just have the music, but they could see everything on the board, you know. And remember, we do all have all the multiple intelligences manifested in different levels, right? But one thing that I told her that is very important is that while I know my preference for learning, if I'm unprepared, that's going to be my default for teaching, right? I'm going to come up here and I'm going to try and shoot from my hip, I'm going to wing it, and I'm going to try and teach you how I want to learn. But that is not the recipe for success. So adequate planning allows me, in my situation, when all the students are gone, when my classroom is quiet, when my kids are in after-school care, I can sit down and I can adequately plan for all the different multiple intelligences and the various learning styles. So it does take planning to do it well. Otherwise, you default to how you want to learn. But it's important to recognize even your preference. Okay, so just a little indicator. I'm not going to make you talk or anything about your preferences, but I'm just curious. Who are our visual learners? Okay, we got a lot of visual learners. How about auditory? Great. And kinesthetic?
I had the same number of visual as I did kinesthetic.
Okay. Yes, that's awesome. And you can, yes, you can have all different types of combinations. You could find that you have a dominant, so you can have, you know, dominance in maybe more than one area, right? That's awesome. Okay. Did you find that interesting? Yes, I'm glad. Okay, so now that we've learned about all the different multiple intelligences and learning styles, let's look a little bit into differentiated instruction. Differentiating instruction may mean teaching the same material to all students using a varied instructional strategies, or, I didn't like the way that sentence is, or it may require the teacher to deliver lessons at different levels of difficulty based on the ability of each student. Okay, so teachers who practice differentiation in the classroom may design lessons based on students' learning styles. We've talked at great length about that. Group students by shared interest, topic, or ability for assignments. Assess students' learning using formative assessment. Manage the classroom to create a safe and supportive environment. Continually assess and adjust lesson content to meet students' needs. Differentiating instruction. Teachers can differentiate instruction through 4 ways: through content, through process, through product, and through learning environment. Okay, so through content, the teacher should give consideration to those students who may be completely unfamiliar with the concepts in a lesson, may have partial mastery, and some students may already be familiar with the content before the lesson begins. Now for me, as a language educator, I would have students who maybe didn't know a word of Spanish. Maybe you know a little bit from a different class that you had, or you did a lot in another school, whatever. Maybe you speak fluent Spanish, but you don't know how to write Spanish. You don't know how to spell Spanish. And I find that a lot with the students here that I would encounter. They are conversational at home, but they lack the reading, the writing component. So differentiation. As a teacher, you find out what is happening with each one of the kids, and you try to teach middle of the road, and then you have your exceptions. How do you get all that? Through adequate planning, right? So you're going to have, what do I do for the high flyers who are going to finish fast? What do I need for the ones that need a little more support? I have different learning styles. Maybe I can create centers. We're going to do this together. I'm going to let you break off. If you want to do this application that is reading and comprehension, great. If you want to come over here, you want to build something, and you're going to demonstrate your learning through what you've constructed with your hands, I have to consider all the different types of learners and to engage. You don't ever want someone to be sitting there like, is she done yet, or is he done yet? You know, you want everyone to be like, oh my gosh, the bell rang? Yeah, because we're all having fun in this learning journey. Okay, so differentiation through content examples. Match vocabulary words to definitions, read a passage of text and answer related questions. Think of a situation that happened to a character in the story. So you can have different ways that are appealing to the different learning styles, okay? Through the process. So this addresses the fact that not all students require the same amount of assistance from the teacher, and students could choose to work in pairs, small groups, or individually. Sometimes I would even, seating arrangement is very important in managing a classroom. Sometimes, I always have assigned seats in my classrooms. It's like, I love that you love your friend, however, you're not going to love your friend until this class is over. You know, because we have stuff to do, right? So I always assign seats, and sometimes I would pair a very strong person next to someone who is weak. A lot of times you learn by explaining to other people, right? It gives you an opportunity to demonstrate what you've learned, and you reinforce it as well, right? And then the person who needs a little help, they're getting it from a different person. So Senora Scott, or Mrs. Scott if it's algebra, presents it this way, but my friend presents it this way. And with the combination of both, you know, I can have success, okay? So you do have to consider all these things as you are planning. Teachers can enhance student learning by offering support based on individual needs. I would always have someone who I felt like had a need that I needed to be close to, close to me in the front. Whether or not it was somebody who was very talkative, maybe an alpha child who hadn't owned their leadership abilities just yet, I need to have you close to me. Or if someone wore glasses and they're going to have a hard time in the back of the classroom, so I need to bring that person forward. Okay? So there's so many different considerations that you must have. Differentiating through process, provide textbooks for visual and word learners, allow auditory learners to listen through audiobooks, give kinesthetic learners the opportunity to complete an interactive assignment online. A lot of teachers do not like to do centers because centers in the education world, it's like I have over here, maybe I would have a puzzle. I create some matching puzzles, picture, vocabulary, word, you're going to turn them over or whatever. Kinesthetic learner is going to love that. Maybe over here, I might have a writing station. Over here, I would have a different station, and it does require a lot more planning. But you give kids the opportunity to choose how they love to process information, how they love to produce a product. Okay? Yes. I enjoy the work that much that my satisfaction was that we hung up that video chat and the girl understood the concept and she felt confident going to school. Adapt to student needs. So you see what the students need and it's like, okay, guess what? All right, I've got to change some things around to help you. Okay? Welcome change in the classroom. Sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I've always done it this way. This is the way I do it, and I'm not going to deviate. But yes, life happens. You have a fire drill, in the classroom. Guess what? My lesson still has to go on, even though I lost 20 minutes for the fire drill, or whatever the scenario. Take time to explore new tools. You don't ever want to be stagnant in anything. I think about even the evolution of how we worship. Before it was just a pastor and he spoke to us and then we left. Now it's like, okay, maybe we have young people, we're going to take the lights down a little bit. I might not be totally comfortable with the lights down a little bit, but they like that, Or maybe I'm going to use my praise and worship team wears ripped skinny jeans, That's fine for the generation, right? Maybe before, because we all had to, you couldn't wear anything sleeveless to church, right? But now ripped jeans are fine to lead worship. Okay. Let's see, give their students emotional support. Sometimes you just have to give them a hug. Okay, we're gonna go out here for a second. Okay, I'm just stepping outside the door, find out what's going on. You guys, I'm just outside. You're not left alone, or you're just gonna talk to this person for a second, and then you're able to go back and do life. Are comfortable with the unknown. Who knows everything? Nobody. Jesus. Are not threatened by parent advocacy. I had a parent one time, and she was from the Dominican Republic, and she came to me at a school function, and she said, what type of Spanish is this? My family will be like, what is she speaking? Because I studied in Spain, and I used the verb form, pronoun and verb form that they do not use in the Americas. And when I studied in Spain, they taught me that entire verb form, and then they said, when you go to the Americas, you will omit this. This is how we say it in Spain, this is how we say it in the Americas. So I had complete information. So in my classroom, I would teach the complete information, but Mom didn't have that. She never used vosotros, which is the formal verb of you. So I was not threatened by Mom, because I had to explain to her, your daughter is going to have a higher skill set than you actually when it comes to verb conjugations, because should she ever go to Spain, she'll know how to converse. She can omit it when she's talking to your family. So don't be threatened by parent advocacy. Bring fun into the classroom. Yay, fun, fun. Learning is fun. It's not boring. Okay? Teach holistically. You want to just not just have one thing in your box. You're teaching your whole child. If a child is having an issue at home, think about that as well. You know, not making exceptions that that cause other students to feel like there's a preference, but maybe I'm going to give you maybe 2 more days to get that book report because I know that you had to go stay with your auntie last night. Yeah? Never stop learning. Never stop learning. When I worked in business, there was one of the board of directors said to me, and he was a former educator, he was like, we were just looking over the Bloomberg together, and he just said to me, he was like, never stop learning. And I kind of hold that as a mantra. Whatever it is, there's always something I could learn. Like Pastor James said, yeah, always learning. Okay, break out of the box. Okay, not just, okay, this is what I do, this is how I do it. I did it 10 years ago, it worked 10 years ago. No.
That's the hardest one for teachers to do, break out of the box.
Yes, it's so hard. It's hard for us. And successful teachers are masters of their subject. Know your craft. Okay, so I just want to end with this. I thought that we would have some more time for the 7 of you that didn't get to share, but I do apologize. Understanding your purpose is the beginning of being effective. Okay, this was, and then I also have this little quote. So I had a little grade school teacher, student, and he said to me, he said, Senora Scott, you love Spanish. And I said, how do you know that I love Spanish? He said, because you smile when you speak Spanish. And that just stuck with me. I was like, wow, he can tell that I love this because, well, I'm happy to be in his space. And he was happy to be in my place because I smiled, you know. So I would just encourage you all, whatever your calling, whatever capacity you have to teach or instruct, that you take some of what we have learned, well, you would have gone over your study guide already, but what we have gone over today, and apply it so that you can be more effective. And God will say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And he's going to, just like the parable of the talents, okay? So what did you do with that I gave you? I can entrust you with more. So we get the knowledge, we apply it. He said, guess what? I've got some more stuff for you to do as well. So thank you for your time. Yes.
Before you set up, you set up the 4th station, even though you may do it in your mind before you do it in the classroom. Do you, when the class first gets started, when the kids first start coming to you, do you make a little speech like, listen, I'm here to help you. Some of you are kinesthetic learners, some of you are visual learners, and I want to try to get you in an area where do you do that kind of thing?
No, do you know what? They didn't even realize that I'm applying educational theories. They're like, we're just having fun. Yeah, that was a great class. I love when you have this center, Senora Scott. I love moving around. I love choosing. I love when you let me come over here, put the earphones on, and navigate through that application you have on the computer. They don't even realize what's happening. Yeah, they just think that it's fun, and there is theory behind it. Through product, so differentiating through product. So read and write learners can write a book report. Visual learners can create a graphic organizer of the story. Auditory learners give an oral report. Kinesthetic learners build a diorama illustrating the story. Now, I have found when you give the kids the options, how do you want to produce your learning or demonstrate to me that you have learning, they really jump in. They feel like they have ownership of this learning process. I get to choose. Okay, so I can either write a book report, or I'm very good at doing iMovies, said student. So I can do a little iMovie with my friends. Again, I'm coming to my house, we could do a little skit, I'm going to edit it, and then that's going to be my grade? Yes. And so they feel involved in the process, and they own it a lot more than me just always giving a blanket assessment. Of course, we're talking about product right now. Now, there is a time and place for that, right? I do have to sometimes just give blanket assessments. However, when you can differentiate through product, the kids are definitely going to be so much more engaged. Differentiation through learning environment. A flexible classroom layout is important, incorporating various types of furniture and arrangements to support both individual and group work. Now, when I taught in public school, I always had a couch in my classroom. Here at the private school, they had a lot more criteria and guidelines. You can't bring your couch. But I loved having a couch. I would always have a reading corner. If you wanted to go sit off on my comfy couch and read a book, that's great. You want to go on the computers, that's fine, or whatever. And then also considering how you arrange the seats. Some competing with the train. Some organization of seats is much more conversational than others. Now, I'm a language educator, and so if I put my seats in a semicircle, it's going to be very conversational. Now, I would always have a rule in my class: you can't speak English without permission. So it's like, speak to your heart's content if it's Spanish, right? Just a semicircle, I could encourage much more conversation. This seating arrangement is if I had a really high involvement class that I needed to manage a lot more. This is not a conversational layout. But you guys have been participatory today, and I appreciate it. Yeah. But you do have to consider your environment as you are differentiating. Okay, so you could break some students into reading groups to discuss the assignment, allow students to read individually if preferred, create quiet spaces where there are no distractions. Okay, so there are pros and cons. Students appear to be more engaged in learning, and there are reportedly fewer discipline problems in classrooms where teachers provide differentiated instruction or differentiating lessons. Okay. And then some of the cons, this first one, it says differentiated instruction requires more work during lesson planning, and many teachers struggle to find the extra time in their schedule. Yes, there's that. It requires a lot of time. My first career was in finance, and I managed investment portfolios, but I could leave my job at 5:30 every day. I could be on the beach by 6 o'clock. That was a luxury I had with that profession. Teaching, because the way that I approached it was with a spirit of excellence, you could always find teaching material in my car. Sundays after church, and we'd go to a friend's house, we'd be sitting around talking, I'll pull out my teacher bag, and she had a 12-year-old girl who was left-handed. I'd get her help me mark, because she had these little backwards ticks, and my students would say, why are your ticks backwards? Oh, my helper is left-handed. So I taught 7 days a week, preparation for my class or whatever. And admittedly, some people are happy to leave at 3:45, and they say you can legally leave and enjoy your 2-3 months off in the summer. Unfortunately, there are those people. And then there are people like other people, I think I fall into that category, who will prepare 7 days a week. You're thinking about what conference you can go to in the summer, to learn more about your craft, right? So you want to be the best person for your clients. and differentiating the structure definitely helps to facilitate that. Okay, so just want to add, before we share the last few people, I want to go through some of the qualities of successful educators. Let's see, in your study guide, that's page 24. So successful educators have clear objectives. Okay, so you know what to expect. And some of you had shared that even when you put down your procedures and your plans for your simulated teaching environment, have clear objectives. Maybe stated differently, but that's what you conveyed. Successful educators have a sense of purpose. You need to know why you're there. Yeah, are you there for the money? Are you there for the vacations? Are you there because you get 2 weeks off for Christmas? You know? No, you're there to affect lives. Are you able to live without immediate feedback? Sometimes you don't always get immediate feedback. And sometimes you do. You don't realize sometimes the impact that you're having on someone until much later on. And sometimes you can find out, you know, by the next class period. But you have to be willing to not necessarily need that affirmation in the short term. Know when to listen to students and when to ignore. Yeah, sometimes students will tell you a whole lot, and you have to also know when, and this is a loaded sentence, know when to listen and when to ignore, because shouldn't I listen all the time? Well, sometimes it's not the time for listening, and sometimes it's not something you should share. When I taught kindergarten, and kids would tell you a whole lot. And I'm like, please, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to have a parent-teacher conference with your parent. I don't want to look at your parent and think about our conversation. Let's stop here. So I had a little phrase that I would use. If they started to tell me a little too much, I would say, that sounds like a family secret. Let's not talk about that right now. Because I'm going to be looking at your daddy when he comes for a parent-teacher conference. Okay. All right. Have a positive attitude. Okay, so that goes so well. I mean, so far. Have a positive attitude. And you think, like I think of one teacher that I had when I was in primary school. You guys would call that elementary school. And this lady, she was just grumpy all the time. Just like if I have her face in my mind, it's just like, She was grumpy. She was scary. She taught the advanced math class from my year level, so I had to go to her for math. But it was scary going into her classroom. Have a positive attitude. Expect their students to succeed. What do you believe about your students? Do you expect that they're going to do well? Have a sense of humor. Sometimes things don't go right, Just laugh it off. Okay, guess what? Yes, I tripped in front of you. People trip. Let's laugh at me for a second. Okay, no, that's enough laughing. Okay. All right, use praise smartly. Okay, so you don't want to just be giving it out all the time. That was great job, you're amazing, That it doesn't mean anything when it really should, right? So you give that praise when it is earned. Or when you feel like someone needs encouragement. You're doing a great job, much better than yesterday. Yeah? Let me go back. Know how to take risks. Yeah, you got to push yourself. As well as you expect your students to be pushed, you've got to be willing to push yourself as well. You're consistent. A student comes into my classroom, they know what to expect because I have conveyed the rules and procedures. They feel safe. They're reflective. You can look back. When I was doing my master's degree, I was also teaching at the time, and I had to record my lessons and look back and critique myself. And one thing I realized I was doing, I didn't realize before, it was that, oh my gosh, I go around and sit on desks. I was like, oh my gosh, you're a lazy teacher. Why are you sitting on everybody's desk? Like, if there was an empty desk, I'd go sit on it and talk. And I changed that. I was like, stop sitting on every piece of furniture that is vacant. You know, I was reflective. And another thing I realized too when I was watching my videos was that I would recognize the hands of boys more than the hands of girls. And I was like, who am I? Like, what? I'm that person? But I realized from watching myself early on in my career that that's what I was doing. So then I had to say purpose, because that was one of my deficiencies. Purpose to be equal opportunity for all, well, for both genders, right? And it's not something that I struggle with now, but early in my career, once I recognized, it was like, okay, I have a propensity to recognize the boys' hands. Seek out a mentor for yourselves. I think with most professions, we can understand the merit. I had a great foreign language officer who poured into me, and she was a blessing to my life. Communicate with parents. You want to involve the whole family. If you're a grade school teacher, or you're even a Sunday school teacher, involve the parents, so it's not just this isolated part of life. You know, you get the parental support, then it's more successful for everyone. Enjoy your work. A successful educator enjoys their work. It's not, yes, I always had a countdown for summer. I always knew how many days were left in the school year. And I would ask my students, how many days left? Oh, we don't know. You don't know? They're like 36. I always knew, but I always enjoyed what I was doing. You know, I would get paid. I was tutoring someone the other day, one of my friend's daughters, and we were tutoring via, it's amazing, 2019, you can tutor via FaceTime. So we had probably about an hour and a half algebra session. And she wanted to pay me, and I was like, you don't have to pay me. And she was like, no, my husband says we have to pay you. I was like, no, don't pay me, you know. She still paid me. She like almost threw the money at me when she saw me, but